Coast Guard Admiral Thad Allen calls for more openness from BP. The Interior Secretary tells a Senate committee to send all job loss claims right to BP. And the new climate chief calls on nations to join forces in the fight against climate change.
From the Energy News Center in Washington, D.C., this is the Energy Report with Susan McGinnis.
I'm Susan McGinnis. Thanks for joining us for the Energy Report. As the containment operation for the Gulf oil leak appears to be working, the admiral running the cleanup is demanding more answers from BP.
Yesterday,
Coast Guard Admiral Thad Allen, who is heading up the Gulf oil cleanup, says the operation is catching up to 630,000 gallons a day. He said they are making progress restraining the spill and that reinforcement help is on the way, including a shuttle tanker from the North Sea to be there within days. He also said he hopes that capacity of the existing containment structure can be increased soon to more than 1 million gallons a day. Administration officials are talking with BP about a longer-term containment strategy with, quote, built-in redundancies. Allen also discussed a letter that he sent to BP's CEO Tony Hayward requesting more detail and openness about how the company's handling the damage claims.
So one of the things I asked in the letter was to give us data on the claims processing so far so we can make that transparent and understand if there are any problems. We didn't have the data to analyze, and we were getting anecdotal reports, especially during the president's visits down to Grand Isle last week, that there might be some inconsistencies in the claims process. So two things. Once you find out it's a problem, sit down and talk about it. We need some information to talk about it. They own the data. We need the data. I asked for that in the letter. Now we have the meeting, and we move forward to correct any problems we might find.
And BP is meeting with the Admiral today to talk about the claims process. The administration is receiving backlash from the petroleum industry over the drilling moratorium. Hornbeck Offshore Services of Louisiana has filed a lawsuit in a New Orleans district court claiming the Interior Department recommended the 6-month ban to President Obama without any legal justification. The company wants a federal judge to issue an injunction nullifying the moratorium. Interior responded, saying the moratorium is needed for a special commission to have time to study offshore drilling. And Interior Secretary Ken Salazar says drilling will resume in the Gulf of Mexico when his department has a sense of safety and a sense that such a spill can never happen again. Salazar spoke to the Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee today, clarifying new rules for shallow water drilling just out from the Minerals Management Service. President Obama's moratorium on deep water drilling affects about 33 rigs. The new rules put new shallow water drilling on hold too. Louisiana Senator Mary Landrieu told Salazar the moratorium could wreak economic havoc and devastate the Gulf Coast. But Salazar says that's one more area where BP will ultimately be held accountable.
If these long list of companies that are not oil companies but oil service companies have to either go out of business or take bankruptcy or lay off thousands of workers, are you going to ask BP to pick up their salaries and to make them whole?
The answer to that is yes, we will. BP is responsible, and BP is responsible for all the damages that flow from the BP oil spill, and these are some of the consequences from that oil spill.
Voters in Carpinteria, California rejected a measure that would have allowed oil drilling off the coast of Santa Barbara County. 70% of voters rejected Measure J. Opponents say Denver driller Veneco would have been able to bypass normal reviews and put a drilling rig next to homes and a nature preserve. Advocates, though, say the site has processed oil for more than 50 years, and the plan would have produced revenue for the city. A spokeswoman for Veneco says the company will review its options after the results are certified. Kevin Costner was on the Hill today before the House Energy and Environment Subcommittee. He testified before the lawmakers about his oil cleanup technology that acts as a high-speed centrifuge and separates oil from water. When asked why the product was not already in use, Costner said he got held back by red tape after exposing the product nationally because the machine was not mandated nor legislated. The technology from Ocean Therapy Solutions started out as a federally funded project under DOE, but Costner said got lost in the shuffle after moving into the private sector.
The taxpayer paid for this at first, and then I took it out of the DOE. If there was an agency that could have, like, yeah, I guess like a parole officer, I know I'm going to use wrong words here, I just know it. But the ideal thing would be to say, yes, this does work, and bring it back to a body like yourself and find a way for government to be a little more fluid with this situation, because these should have been on every ship transferring oil. They should be on every oil derrick. They should be at every port and every harbor.
Ocean Therapy says these machines clean up to 6 million gallons of water a day. Costner says BP has placed an order for 32 of these machines, which will be deployed between now and August. The incoming UN climate chief says nations have no choice but to join forces to stop global warming. This just after current chief Evo de Boer said he doubts sufficient climate goals will be set by 2020. Cristiana Figueres told reporters at a UN climate conference in Bonn there is no other option but to meet the challenge of cutting greenhouse gas emissions enough to prevent drastic climate change. She says the Copenhagen Climate Summit had some positive results, even if it was, quote, full of errors from which we can learn. An administrative law judge has ruled there is no pattern of violations that would lead to stricter regulation at a Massey energy mine in Virginia. MSHA wanted to classify Massey's Tiller No. 1 mine as its first persistent violator. Well, the judge ruled that 10 out of 29 violations found at Tiller were not serious, dropping the total below the threshold of 25 that establishes a pattern. MSHA Director Joe Main says the decision shows flaws in a system for targeting mines that have many health and safety violations. Massey says the decision shows why there is an appellate process. NASA will launch a new mission this month, but not into space. This is the agency's first dedicated oceanographic field campaign. NASA says the trip will give it an up-close look at how conditions in the Arctic are affecting ocean chemistry and ecosystems that play a critical role in climate change. More than 40 scientists will sample physical, chemical, and biological characteristics of the Chukchi and Beaufort seas and sea ice. The voyage begins June 15th from Dutch Harbor in the Aleutian Islands. Let's take a look now at some energy goings-on around the Beltway tomorrow. Congressional Quarterly Roll Call hosts a policy breakfast to examine energy issues following the Gulf spill. Participants will talk about deepwater drilling, strategies to meet U.S. energy needs, and more. And at 10, the Senate Homeland Security Committee holds a hearing on the impact of the Deepwater Horizon oil spill on Gulf Coast states and localities. That is the Energy Report. We'll see you again tomorrow with your latest energy news. For any suggestions or comments you have for us about our programming on Clean Skies News, we want to hear from you. You can email us at contact@cleanskies.com. You can also find us on Twitter and Facebook, too. From all of us here in the Energy News Center, have a good day.